So today's notes should now be in your table of contents. We're going to start off by reviewing what the word percent means, which we talked about a little bit from yesterday's journal work. So percent can be broken down apart into per and cent. So per means for each or for every, and then cent, just like century and a cent, and I feel like, oh, centipede, I hate those things, is 100. So per or for every 100. Or for each 100, or something of that sort. So if we were dealing with something like 62%, 62%, we could write 62% as 62 per 100. And who can read to us what that fraction would be read as? What does that fraction sound like when we read that fraction? And that will get us to our decimal. Yes, sir. 62 hundredths. So if I was saying the word or the number 62 hundredths and wanted it as a decimal, I'm going to have 62 ending in the hundredths place. So 0.62. That looks very, very messy. Let's try again. The next one is a little bit different though. If I have 3.5%, 3.5 per 100, I can't say 3.5 hundredths and put that into a decimal. So instead, I will multiply the top and the bottom by 10, make it an equivalent fraction that we will have you, sir, read to us. What fraction is that?
35,000.
35 thousandths. So now we just have to have a 35 going into the thousandths place. So 0.10 hundredths loops. Tenths and then hundredths and thousandths. But there's an actual shortcut swooping trick to turn the percents into the decimals. So notice in this one, 62% has an implied decimal after the 2. And when I turn it into the decimal equivalent, it swoop, 2 places to the left. This one, the 0.5 here, swoop, 2 places to the left. So instead of going through the whole process of turning it into a fraction that makes it then a non-complex fraction that has some power of 10 in the denominator, we can just swoop. Swoop, there it is. So to change a percent to its equivalent decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And get rid of the percent sign. I personally get confused with left and right, so I do that 4. So I go to 50%. I go 50% is the same as what decimal? Swoop. And that reminds me which way to swoop things. So 50% is the same as what decimal? Sir? 0.5. That's such a frequent rational number that we hopefully should know 50% is the same as 1/2, 1/2 is the same as 0.5. So that can be like a starting point to check, does that seem reasonable that my percent got turned into a certain decimal? So if I end up with a percent that's more than 50%, I expect my answer to be more than 1/2. So just to check on reasonableness. For the next one we have 5.5%. What are we going to do with that? Yes, sir. So is 5.5 our answer?
No, 5.5 is
5.5%. So there are some people who will go, I changed to 5.5%, I put a decimal and I'm done and move on. It's still a percent. So what decimal is 5.5% equivalent to? Yes, sir.
0.05.
Mm-hmm. So that equals 0.055. The next one already has a decimal point in it. Just some people, okay, it's small enough, but no, it gets even smaller. It's like, oh, when I look at that organism under the microscope, it's really 0.03% of what the size of what I'm seeing through the microscope, or something like that. Or there's this minuscule, you want to hear a gross example that I give for a really, really tiny percent? You all already ate your lunch, right? It's digested somewhat.
Yeah, sure.
From what I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not, they allow a very, very, very small amount of animal matter in food products. Because any old, factory or whatever has mice or insects or whatever around. So let's say that they allow 0.03% of animal matter to be in your cookies, for example.
Mac and cheese.
What decimal equivalent?
Cheese.
Who can tell me what decimal equivalent they allow to be into your food? Sir? 3 10,000s. Oh, I'm wrong for that. That's okay. 0.10, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. So shwoop shwoop means I need 2 more placekeeper zeros before I get to the 03 that I started with. And then there's other times where they'll be like, oh, we had a fundraiser and we set our goal that we wanted to raise a certain amount. Oh my gosh, we did so great. We made 153% of our goal. So there are times that you can have more than 100%. Some people go, oh no, 100% is the maximum. There are times then you can go beyond a goal, for example. So 153% as a decimal would be what? Yes, ma'am? 1.53. Now going the other way is going to be legitimately just going the other way, but let's just prove that it works. So 0.26 to turn that into a percent. We can do the similar that we did up there and turn it first into the fraction, 26 hundredths. The 26 hundredths means 26 per hundred, so 26%. On the next one here, we have 0.077. So I don't know what that is because I told you I'm off by that. Tens, hundreds, thousands. That's 77 thousandths. So in this case, to turn it into a per hundred fraction, we would have to divide by 10 on the top and on the bottom to make 7.7 per hundred. So therefore, 7.7%. So make sure you're writing down every example and every step along the way in the notes. When you have that note scavenger hunt, it could say, in the let's try section, when you were working with 0.077, what were the 2 fractions that we converted it to? Right, the note scavenger hunt could ask specifically about some of the parts of the steps along the way. But the gist of it is that you just swoop in the other direction. This was over here, swoop, swoop, it went over there. This was over here, swoop, swoop, it went over there. And you turn it into a percent with the percent sign. So to change a decimal to its equivalent percent, move the decimal point 2 places to the right. I legitimately had to look because I'm bad at the right and left thing. And add the percent sign. And again, because I'm bad with the left or right thing, I'll go back to 50%. Oh, 0.5 would go swoop, swoop, change to 50%. So 0.35 is the same as what percent? 0.35, ma'am.
35%.
35%. As opposed to 0.035. Swoop, swoops. To what percent, sir?
3.5%?
3.5%. Some people would write that as what? What's another way to write 3.5%? Yes, ma'am? Or 3.5%. So if it didn't specify, I would take either one. 0.875 is equivalent to what percent, sir?
87.5%.
87.5%. And again, for some reason, some people just, they see 0.5 and they're like, oh, I just like to write it better with the half in there. What about 2.3? 2.3 would be equivalent to what percent? Yes, sir.
230%.
230%. Or 230, thought they were. I'll get you next time. And then the last step, so this is mostly focused on percents and decimals, but there are times when we have to use this knowledge as well as the knowledge we did before with decimals and fractions in order to get the percents and fractions connected. Does everyone have all the notes filled in? All right. No, I didn't say capture. No. Yeah, well, can't in the middle of this. We gotta go down there. So what if you're given a fraction and you want to find its equivalent percent? What should you do? You got a fraction, you want to turn it into percent. What should you do, ma'am?
Well, you have to change the bottom number so it's like out of 100.
If possible, just like last night's homework, it'd be great to turn that fraction into a fraction that has 100 as its denominator. Would you be able to do that with 3/16? No. Or 3/55? So that is going to be something we'll write down, but what's another strategy we can use? Trying to think what I haven't heard from. Sir? Huh? Cross multiply what? You're not really sure what that means. Oh, here's a hint. Here's a kind of sort of hint. You've been actually doing this anytime I give you back something on your assessment sheet that doesn't easily convert into a percent. You've been doing these steps. So what do you do? Yes, sir. This time, do it.
You divide the numerator by the denominator.
Divide the numerator by the denominator, and then swoop, swoop, that decimal over. So, if you're given a fraction and want to find its equivalent percent, one option, if possible, turn it into a fraction over 100. That would be grand if that was always possible, like all the problems on yesterday's homework, most of them at least. Or convert it to a decimal, then with the decimal point. Swoop, swoop. So if I had 3/5, I personally sometimes just get in this mode of always doing the division. I do 3 divided by 5 and then swoop, swoop. But 3/5, I don't have to do 3 divided by 5. What would be a faster, more efficient way to do 3/5 if I happen to sort of think about that beforehand? Yes, ma'am?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, like you change like the 5 into 100.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like times 20, and then you would do 3 times 20, which is 60 out of 100, and then it would be like 60.
It would like totally be like 60%. But I can't turn like 16 like into hundredths. So instead, in this case, I do have to go through the painful process of doing the long division. Dividing 3 by 16. So I'm actually going to pause the recording for you to spend a little time. I think we might have to go that many. I'm just going to try to catch up to you guys. And I've got answers in front of me, so my guess and check is... Oh. Okay, they're going sideways. We should find that 3/16 is equal to 0.1875 if we do our long division carefully.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of work, and you're like, whew, I'm so glad I'm done with that. But if the task is to turn it into a percent, we still have to swoop it. And what do we get when we swoop it? 3/16 is equivalent to what percent? Yes, sir. 18.75, don't forget percent sign. All right, the next one, 3 divided by 55. Again, real life, probably gonna bust out a calculator. Math class, we're gonna practice the long division for a little bit. So it is going to repeat. I'm not gonna be able to have this go in, but when I get to here, I say that goes in 5 times. I don't remember what that was. 275, I think. So I subtract, I get 25. I'll bring down a 0. That goes in 4 times, but that's 220. So that's a 30. So then when I bring down a 0, I'm gonna be like, wait a minute, I already did that. And it happens again, and again, and again. So even though as a decimal, I'm going to write it as 0.054. Even though as a decimal, I'm going to write it as 0.054 where the 54 repeats. How can I write it as a percent with the repeating decimal? Yes, sir?
5 for 4, 5, like the minor with 1.
This time it's the 4 and the 5 that repeat when it gets converted to a decimal. So I've seen some people have issues with that because they want this 5, 4 to repeat. This 5 is on one side of the decimal point when I convert it to a percent. The 4 is on the other side. So then it becomes a 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5 repeating pattern. So it's a little something funky going on there.